through
Well, there's been a couple times. Some of my best jokes, just happened to be standing 5, 6 feet away from somebody who was telling a joke, and maybe the joke didn't go over that well, and I didn't catch the whole story, but I got the gist of an idea, and from there I create and put the rest of it together on my own.
Tell that one story about how you could barely hear the joke.
Oh yeah, well it was the guy. There were two women sitting at the bar. This is my old buddy Gene Sage's place out in the northwest suburbs, and I was standing a good 6 feet away, and I could only hear little bits and pieces. And it was he was telling this joke, and he thought it was so funny, and I'd hear this part and a little bit of this, and finally he finished and told the punchline, and the two women he was trying to hit on telling the joke, they got up and they walked away. They were pissed off. As a matter of fact, they were kind of angry. They thought it was a shitty thing to tell. So I took what little pieces I had, and I put together one of my favorite stories, which is about the bright sunny Saturday morning up in the little town outside Dublin. And the women in the parish, they were in cleaning and scrubbing and everything in the home where the parish priest lived. And all of a sudden they heard like a little knock on the door. So the priest said to him, he says, "Just keep cleaning, ladies." He says, I'll go out and check it myself. So he goes and he opens the door and he looks around. It's a bright sunny day. He doesn't see anything. He closes the door and he turns around and starts to walk back in, and again he hears this little tapping. So he opens the door again, and all of a sudden somebody's tugging on his pants leg, and he looks down and here's two little leprechauns. And he says, "What can I be doing for you fellas?" And they said, "Well, Father, we've got a bit of a problem. We're looking for someone." He says, "Well, come on in. Come on into the office." So they, two little leprechauns walking through, the ladies cleaning are looking, my God, it's a bright sunny Saturday morning, and here's these two little leprechauns walking right through into the parish priest's office. Well, he says, "Sit down, fellas." So they sit down on the chair, and of course they're so short, their little legs are just dangling there. They don't even touch the floor. He says, "What can I be doing for you fellas?" They said, "Well, Father, we're looking for a short nun." He says, "A short nun, is it?" He says, "Well, that's no problem." He says, I got me a 3x5 file here, and he says, "I've got the sizes and statistics on all the priests and nuns in the parish." So he starts going through them. He says, "Sister Mary Margaret." He says, "Here she is. She's 5'2". And they said, "No, Father, she'd have to be a lot shorter than that." He says, "Well, wait a minute. Here's Sister Mary Ellen. She's just a shade under 5 foot." And he said, "Well, Father, she'd have to be shorter than that." He says, "Here it is, Sister Mary Margaret." He says, "She's 4'3". And they said, "No, Father, she's not short enough." He says, "Well, fellows, that's the shortest nun in the parish." He says, "I'm sorry." He says, I don't know what to tell you." And they said, "Well, thank you very much, Father. We'll be on our way." And he says, "Oh, wait a minute. He says, there's a chancery office up in Dublin. It's only a little ride on the train up to Dublin." And he says, "You go to the chancery office and you ask for Monsignor Cunningham. And Monsignor Cunningham has one of those wonders of the modern age called a computer." He says, "And on that computer is all the vital statistics on all the priests and nuns in all of Ireland. If that nun exists, you'll be able to find her for you." They said, "Well, thank you very much, Father." And so they go up, and it's a bright sunny day. People in town are amazed. Here's two leprechauns walking right down the main street. They go over, they get on the train, they go up to Dublin, they go to the chancery office. And of course they're knocking on the door, the same thing. Nobody sees them at first. Finally, they're tugging on the pants leg of Monsignor, and he lets them in. They come in, and they tell him their problem. And Monsignor says, "Well, let me go back." He says, "I got one of them wonders of the modern age called a computer." He says, "And I got all the vital statistics on all the priests and nuns in Ireland." He says, "I'll be sure and find them for you." So he goes in there and he comes out, and he's got a little tiny printout. Of course, he's looking for a short nun, so it doesn't need a big printout. And that. He says, "Well, the parish she just came from, the shortest nun, obviously, she was just a shade under 5 foot." He says, "Over at St. Malachy's," he says, "on the west side of Dublin," he says, there's a sister, Mary Christian, and she's 4'6". They said, no, Father, she'd have to be shorter than that. He said, here it is. He says, Sister Margaret Mary Ellen. He says, she's just a shade under 4 foot. They said, well, Father, she'd have to be a lot shorter than that. He says, well, I'm sorry, fellas, I don't know what to tell you, but that's the shortest nun in all of Ireland. They said, well, thank you very much, Father. And as they turned to walk away, the one penguin, leprechaun nudges the other, and he says, you see, Eric, I told you, you've been fucking a penguin.